Okay, we'll start this presentation now. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Transit virtual project update for Riverdale and Cloverdale. A special welcome to the residents of Riverdale and Cloverdale. Thank you so much for joining us today as we tell you a little bit of what's happening in your area and on the entire alignment. So today's presentation will be led by Dallas Linskog, Transit's communication manager, and we also have Eric Marcotte, who's Bombardier's rail testing and commissioning manager. On the line, you must have, if you came in a little bit earlier, you must have heard them and a little bit of chatter about their singing voices. We will be taking questions for the entire duration of the presentation. The questions will be answered at the end of the presentation. We'll try to get to as many as we can. If you'd like to submit a question or even comment, if you're on your phone or your tablet, at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a Q&A. If you tap on that, you should be able to submit a question or comment. And if you're on your desktop or laptop, if you just exit the full screen mode and go to your top left corner, you'll see a Q&A. And once you click on that, you'll be able to submit a question or a comment. And once again, we'll be taking questions and comments for the entire duration of the presentation. And the Valley Line Southeast project, this will be recorded, so the entire of this presentation. So if you'd like to rewatch it or share it with your friends or your family, you can find it on our website and on our YouTube. And without further ado, I'll hand it over to Dallas.
Thank you, Isabel. And thanks for that introduction. And those of you that maybe didn't hear Eric and I talking before, you didn't miss anything. There certainly was no singing involved, and there will not be any singing involved in today's presentation because we kind of want you to stay online and listen to what's going on. So a quick note just to thank those of you that maybe have found this presentation after the fact. The date right now is October 28th. You may have found this after the fact. So we thank you for doing that and clicking on it and listening to this presentation as well. It should take us about an hour to go through the information, maybe a little bit less. I am chock full of all kinds of really current information to give you today, so I'm excited to share that with you, and it will take some time. So the contents of today's presentation that we'll take you through is a brief introduction of the project, and then we're going to focus in on the Riverdale and the Cloverdale construction updates in and around those neighborhoods. We're going to take you through some train system updates. Eric will lead that portion. And then I'm going to walk you through a number of other project features along the entire alignment of the LRT. We'll focus a bit on safety, on how that impacts the public, as well as some of our COVID-19 response as well. And then, as Isabel mentioned, you can be submitting questions throughout the presentation, and Eric and myself, and also with some assistance from the city who's joining us today as well. We'll do our best to answer those questions. So just a quick note, let you know that yes, we do have representation from the city as well that's available to answer questions, and they are listening in today as well. So with that, we will move right into the project introduction. So before I do that, I want to talk a little bit about what you see on your screen right now. If you want to just go back, Isabel, for a second. This is some public art rendering from down in the Muddart area. This is some artist work that's going to be mounted on top of the stop at the Muddart station down at the bottom of in the Muddart Park, basically. So this art was created by Stephanie Johnson. She is doing botanically themed sculptures, and they will echo plants and flowers that are found at the Muddart Conservatory. And what I find really interesting about this art is that it was actually derived from imagery provided to her from members of the community that were in the Muddart. They created sketches of the different plants and species and so on that they saw inside the Muddart, and she's taken those and used them to help influence the sculptures that she's making. Really, really neat. It looks similar to this. I saw some recent photos actually of it today, and I could tell you it's very, very similar to what you see in the rendering here. All right, now we'll move right into just a couple updates and information pieces to do with what this Valley Line project is all about. So first of all, this is a public-private partnership, also known as a P3. This is the first of its kind for the city of Edmonton. It is the southeast portion. Of course, there's another phase coming that'll take the line out to the west. This portion that Transed is building is 13 kilometers long, takes us from downtown Edmonton all the way to Millwoods, and that's at about 66th Street and 28th Avenue. Along that route, there are 11 train stops. We'll talk about them in detail throughout the presentation today. And there's also one elevated, fairly significant station that is situated along the alignment, and that's incorporated with a 1,300 stall park and ride, and also an ETS bus transit facility, taxi stations, kiss and ride, all that sort of transit-oriented parking and so on. So then moving right on, I'm going to dive right into the Riverdale and Cloverdale construction update. I know a lot of you have called in from that neighborhood, and we're really grateful for that. Some really good participation from that community, so we're thankful for that. You've certainly broken the record for a number of people calling in today compared to some of the other areas we've had along the alignment, so we thank you for that. Some of the things I'm going to cover here with some help from Eric is the tunnel portal. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Dewatnow Bridge, which is, of course, the bridge crossing the river. I'm going to take you through some of the landscaping in Louise McKinney Riverfront and Henrietta Muir Parks as well. We'll talk about the traction power substation that's located on the North Riverbank. I'll give you some more details about the Mud Art stop, and then we'll also just show you a little bit of the final configuration drawings just to give you a big overview map of the area as well. All right, so what you're looking at right now is the tunnel portal. This is the big picture on the left is looking down the tunnel. So this is actually taken just at the top of well, it's not the top, I guess it's the very east end of 102nd Avenue at about, well, it's basically where it crosses Jasper Avenue. In fact, right above this photo, now that I think about it, is Jasper Avenue. So you can see in this photo, it's very close to completion. Those devices wrapped in plastic along the outsides of the photo there are actually the fans that help move air through the tunnels. You can see there are two, one for the inbound track and one for the outbound. And on the photos on the right, bottom right, you can see a little bit of a shot down the tunnel. From there, you can note that the track is being installed. There's conduits along the side, so a lot of the systems and cabling infrastructure is going into the tunnel right now as well. Well underway, actually, that work. We're very close to completing the tunnel. On the top right photo, you can see the tracks actually coming out of the portal on the riverbank side. So that is the north riverbank of the river, just as it connects to the Dewatnow Bridge. Fairly recent photograph, that one there as well. All right, moving on now to a bit more about the Dewatnow Bridge itself. I like to talk about this one, first of all, because it really helps people in the neighborhood, but really anywhere along the city that sees this bridge to get a feel for where we're at with construction. So first note is all of the cable stays are up. You can see that in the photo. There's 7 of them in total. The concrete bridge deck is now complete. We finished that a few weeks back in September. You can see the last concrete pour occurring in the top left photo. That's the formwork system. Normally that was under tarps. You probably saw that for a long period of time. That's what it looks like when the tarps have been removed. And now that that concrete is done, we're able to move into the next phases of construction. And what that allows us to do is a lot of the work above and below the concrete bridge. So first of all, up on top is, of course, the track. So we're in the midst now of installing what's called the plinths. You can see that in the picture on the right. You can see the rebar for that. And those concrete plinths are what actually carries the steel rail across the bridge. That work is actively ongoing right now. In fact, we'll finish that concrete work in the coming weeks. And then we'll move quickly into the rail installation. That allows us to begin putting up the overhead catenary system as well across the bridge. And you'll see that occurring through the winter. Now, the very top little photo in the top left there is a rendering of what the steel work will look like for the underslung pedestrian walkway. So you'll remember there used to be a pedestrian crossing at this location. That has been incorporated into this design, and it's called an underslung SUP, shared use path. That work is ongoing right now. So when you're down in the river valley right now, you can see a steel structure underneath the bridge. That is basically a dolly, or a tram is maybe another way to describe it, that will move back and forth across the river, and it will pick up pieces of that sidewalk on the north side, and it will shuttle them to the south side, and it will be kind of assembled in just piece by piece by piece across the river in the coming months. Now, to do that, we need access, at least on the north side, for cranes to bring that material within reach of that device. To do that requires the river berm to remain in place. So what I can tell you there is, when it comes to the river berms, we're in the process right now of removing the south river berm. you'll see equipment down there now moving the soils and the riprap and the gravels from above the water line. That's happening right now. You'll see a big yellow berm in the river. That's a turbidity curtain there to catch any sedimentation that gets into the river, and that is just meeting all of the requirements from Alberta Environment for protecting the fish habitat. That will move then into the underwater level, I guess is the way to describe it. We'll go a little bit deeper here through the course of the rest of this month and into November, and likely just the beginning of December to remove that south berm. You'll see us start to work on the south berm removal at about the January timeframe of next year. And it will take, while we're working in parallel with the sidewalk underslung work, it'll take us through till about the end of March to remove the north berm. So that is just giving you an indication of kind of the bridge construction and the shared use path. Now that shared use path gets paved. So it will be paved in the spring of next year. We have to do that when temperatures are a little warmer. That will effectively finish the bridge and the sidewalk underneath. It will not immediately give connection across the river for pedestrians. And the reason for that is once the berms have been removed, we're in a position where we can start reestablishing the parks on both sides, so Henrietta Muir and Louise McKinney. Once that's well underway, with the landscaping and the trail systems, once that's all in a condition where we can make it safe for pedestrians, we'll be able to make those connections on both sides, the north and the south, to that new walkway across the river. So you can expect that to happen sometime in the summer of next year, keeping in mind, obviously, all of that landscaping type work must occur in good weather. So we're going to go into that detail right now. Oh, but first, I want to highlight this photo. This is an incredible photo. So we reached out to the photographer, Hugo Sanchez. He allowed us to use it here and present it to you guys. Just a fantastic photo. Check him out at YEG Hugo on his Twitter account, and just he's a fantastic photographer. This is I think by far the best picture I have seen of our bridge in well, really ever. We've only fairly recently had the cable stays up to the point where you can see them in this photo the way you see it right now, but what a beautiful skyline. Just love this photo. All right, so let's talk a little bit more about the landscaping that's going to occur in the river valley. I know a lot of you are probably pretty interested in that. So to start out with, on the Louise McKinney side, so this is the north side, there are 42 different species of trees and shrubs that will be installed in that area, and there are 26 different kinds of roses, believe it or not. In total, about 2,855 plants are being installed in the landscaping areas of that side of the river. Another thing to note here, I wanted to bring up is the river bioengineering. That's the photo in the top right corner. That is basically plant stake, is what you see sticking out of the ground. So I actually had a conversation this afternoon with one of our environmental scientists. Those are either a willow or a poplar. They are typically about 4 feet long, and 1 meter of that plant is actually buried into the soil, and that's to allow it to have a fairly firm rooting and help it to withstand the currents and the ice flows that happen in the river while it's being established. Now, we often get a question of why do we go so far down the river to do that work, and why is it not just happening where the bridge is? So what's important to understand is obviously when you put in a river berm into the river, there is a certain amount of disturbance to the fish habitat and just the riverbed at that location. So as compensation for that, Alberta Environment requires contractors like ourselves to do an offsetting plan, which is put this additional planting back in place first where the berm is. So that will happen next spring. But in addition, further areas to basically give an equivalent and quite a bit more than an equivalent footprint of reestablished fish habitat and improvements to the biodiversity in that area. So that work is ongoing right now. You've probably seen it, and it will continue next spring. Okay, jumping to the other side of the river now. You can see a list of all the different forbs and shrubs and trees that'll be going in the Henrietta Muir side. So this is the south side of the river. Not a whole lot to speak about different here with the plants. You can take a look at that list there. Again, many hundreds of plants get installed there. I will note that the parks will be reestablished, that there's a trail system that was down there before that will be put back into place. The connections to the existing pedestrian bridge over top of 98th Avenue will be reconnected. All of that will happen next spring as well. Now, I wanted to talk about one other little topic here just before we move off this slide, and that's really to do with the reforestation efforts in the entire project, but also specific just to the river valley. So first of all, across the entire project, there's just under 11,000 trees that we'll be planting. And there's 86,000 shrubs across the entire alignment. In the areas of the river valley where there's been forest removed to complete our work, we have to restore that. So we have a very detailed reforestation plan that has been reviewed by the city and the city's environmental professionals, been developed by professionals as well on our side, using environmental scientists and various environmental consultants. One of the unique aspects of that reforestation plan actually started a few years ago. We sent our crews out into the river valley to gather seeds. And we've been growing native plant seeds from the river valley for the last few seasons. We've been growing those in greenhouses. So those are going to be transplanted from the greenhouses into the reforestation areas within the river valley. So over the course of time, that's designed to basically mimic exactly what was there before. So we're pretty proud of that effort. All right, I want to talk a little bit about the the traction power, TPSS, and the SS stands for substation. This is a footprint of the plan view, basically, of the structure that you see being constructed on the top of the north riverbank, just above the tunnel portal. This area, as you can see when you're out there, has a fence around it right now. It's architecturally designed to block the view of the electrical equipment within there. And I just want to highlight with this drawing here some of the landscaping features that will also be planted in front of that fence, just to provide additional shrouding. And as you can see, there's various species of trees, and that's what those various colored shapes are meant to indicate, and shrubs as well. All of that combines to also make sure that there's no sound coming out of that area as well, and making it inconvenient for the area. All right, let's move on now. This one here now is the overall configuration drawing that I spoke about at the beginning. Not a whole lot that I wanted to highlight here, other than you can see the trail system will be reconnected. The colored area, the two little red strips there, is the Muddart stop. That's the platform for the train. And then, of course, there's just the various roads and trails. So it's just want to highlight really that all of the connectivity that you used to see will be reestablished, plus the added connectivity to get pedestrians and anyone really in the river valley connection to the LRT system. All right, we can move on. All right, a little bit more information specific now just to Muddart Park itself. The drawing on the top left is exactly the same stop that I was describing in the previous slide. One thing I wanted to note here is the leaf pattern plaza on the, I guess this is roughly the east end of the Muddart stop. This is just a feature, I'll call it, a landscaping feature. It's going to be patterned looking like a leaf. As you can see, that'll be cut and constructed into the concrete, and then it connects to the trail that would take you to the Muddart Conservatory itself. Top right corner, again, some more renderings of the art that will be going in that area. And then you can see in the bottom two photos just the status and the progress of the work. These are a few weeks old right now even. The one on the left is a picture of the curbs being formed up for the platform. That's the stop platform itself. And the steel structure will be going up there fairly shortly. Maybe even begun, I'm not 100% certain. On the right-hand side, you can see some of our track being installed. I'll point out here that we have two different kinds of track that we install, or two different methods of installation. The first one being this direct fixation. As you can see, it sits above the concrete and is bolted onto that concrete. We'll show you some other photos later in the presentation that illustrate how we have embedded track as well. All right, let's keep moving. I'm going to turn it over now to Eric to give you a little bit of an update on the train system testings.
Thank you, Dallas. So let's go to the next slide and we'll dive right into it. So I wanted to give everybody a little bit of a view of what happens when the trains are actually delivered. So right now we've got more than half the fleet that's actually arrived in Edmonton. Really, really proud about that. So it's coming all the way from Kingston where they're built and tested. And what you're seeing is the transfer process. So on the top right hand, you see two elements. One, you see when the train is actually sitting on the truck that move the vehicle from the rail terminal all the way to the OMF, which is the maintenance facility. But also you can see the train that's a little bit more to the back of the picture, which is actually sitting on the train flatbed, and it's actually sitting on a special support frame. So basically, the complete train and all the axles and everything is on one platform, sitting on that train platform. It gets loaded in Kingston at the manufacturing facility, so it's being rolled on. And then after that, it gets trained all the way to Edmonton and to the main yard. And then after that, get transferred onto that truck, which is really a specialized truck to allow us to take the different curves and be able to navigate the city street. And as we get to our facility, the maintenance facility, so you can see on the lower left hand the truck that's basically backing up onto a ramp. So we're basically back up that truck, tie it to that ramp, and then we use another vehicle, which is called a mobile recovery vehicle, to literally pull the vehicle off of that platform, bring it onto the track, and then enter it into the maintenance facility. That's an interesting process. You probably won't see it unless you're actually up at 2-3 o'clock in the morning, which is the time when we do the deliveries. And it's being done for a reason. We don't want to have anybody impeded to circulate into the streets because it's a very long load and we have to be very careful and we don't want to slow the traffic. So that's basically the main reason for that. So it's quite interesting, and you'll probably notice that there's some hinges into that truck. So if you look again on the top right hand, you see that those lower support trucks are actually linked, in between them, right at the hinges of the train, which allows that whole thing to pivot the same way the train would as it's navigating the streets of Edmonton. So I'm really, really proud of the work that the guys are doing for the delivery, and they have to basically stay up all night to bring those cars in and make sure that everything is okay. And it's a long trek, and it's really, really good to see those trains coming in really good shape. Next slide, please. For the train testing, there's a couple of things to be noted. The pictures that we have there is some of the pictures that we took last winter when we did the dynamic operation around tensioning segment 13, which really is, you're talking about 38th Street in that, Avenue in that area on the 66th Street. So from that perspective, we basically need to have the overhead catenary system. So the overhead catenary system is really the poles that you see that are standing with the jewelry, which is basically the arms that are going on either side of them, and the actual catenary, which is really the conductive cable to which the vehicle picks up the energy from in order to move on the track. Quite exciting to actually see that. So that's you see the way that it's set up for the driving on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, you see on the train some white and orange color, slats that are actually on the side of the vehicle. So that's a process that we're doing as we're actually going through new segments of track. So as the construction is completed and the overhead catenary system is installed and the poles are installed, one of our first step into the verification is actually to bring those trains unpowered and verify that the clearances are okay. And that's what those devices are for. So it's there to verify that the dynamic clearances are okay everywhere on the alignment. And it's one of our very first steps before we actually start dynamic testing of the vehicle. So really, as we get along the alignment, and you will see the poles standing, and then you'll see the jewelry, which is basically the arms on the poles that are being installed, and then you'll see the cables. As you're seeing those things being set up and installed, we're getting closer and closer to the commissioning. So at that point, there's a lot of the commissioning that really you may not necessarily see, because we have also a lot of underground cables and things that we have to install. So that's kind of the unsung hero of that complete system installation, and not very visible, but something that's very present and things that we have to do. And as you start seeing the vehicle moving, being pushed, that the maintenance recovery vehicle, to verify the clearance, that's the first sign that we're about to go and enter that area and that zone, and that's one of our first step towards getting vehicles powered and going in dynamic. You'll also note on the lower picture on the right-hand side a number of pipes that are alongside the guideway. So those pipes are really there to carry all the communication and signals that are being used on the system. So we've got an extensive network where we communicate between our traction power substation, one example being provided by Dallas earlier, but also helping the system communicate with the signals at the intersections and various elements that will make that system going. One point that's interesting is that the vehicle signaling is really line of sight. So, and it's not provision with what you've necessarily used to see with the other systems. So there's no closing gates, there's no bells and lights and things like that. Really, the tram and the LRV, the light rail vehicle, is operating within the traffic. So it's abiding by the light signals. It's provided with its own signals. So it's a different set of lights, but that provide same basic indication about when they can actually go and cross traffic. And all of this is controlled by a secure system to assure the safety of everybody. And then it's part of what we have to commission along the alignment. So really, really interesting stuff. Some of it, of course, when the vehicle is moving, you actually see it, and you'll see more and more of them. And we'll start by running, in static. We call it dynamic static because we're pushing the vehicle. But then after that, we'll go, one vehicle at a time in dynamic using the own power of the vehicle. And then as we go closer and closer to the revenue operation, we will have more trains going, and we'll be simulating different kind of scenarios of operation, and looking at when we have special events, and then when we look at in peak hours and in low peak hours, to just verify the system, but also to verify the people that will be operating the system. So really, really interesting stuff. And you should start seeing things in your area probably in the course of next year. For this year, we will be operating in dynamic more around 66th Street and the area of 38th and so on, and we'll make our way gradually down the alignment and going toward the city downtown core. Next. So the one thing that's really interesting and really to be noted, and maybe it's not really easy to see in that picture because we have the train sitting on the transport bed, but it is a low floor train, so that means that you have a step-free boarding. So from a standpoint of everybody going on board a train, and also for people with reduced mobility and with devices and so on, it makes life a lot easier. It's designed for that. And as the trains stop, at the stations, they're about the same height as a normal curb and sidewalk, and then you're very, very close, in close proximity. So very, very practical for everybody that has to roll in their equipment and be able to go on those trains. Also, those trains are quite quiet. There's no crossing arms and anything at the gates or any bells that are ringing. So it's going to be very important for you, the public and drivers and pedestrians, to really respect the signals. And it's not a very noisy train because, from an overall community perspective, you don't want to have noisy trains going around all the time. You want your peace of quiet and your home and in the parks and everywhere. So from that perspective, be on the lookout. Do respect the signals. And if you do that, then you're not going to get into trouble. You should be okay. That's basically going to be quite exciting. What we're going to see in the next months to come. So next, yeah. So yeah, go ahead.
On to me. Yes, Eric. One thing that you might have forgotten to mention is about train number 19, actually.
Oh yeah, that's true. So train number 19 just coming on its way, and actually it's arrived, and we do have another 2 trains that are on their way right now. So we're really excited to see them coming in. So very soon we will have actually all the trains in Edmonton. We're expecting for all 26 to be completed by the end of the year. And if not all of them in Edmonton by the end of the year, it's going to be really soon. I'm actually looking for my Christmas time present where I can unpack that last train coming in Edmonton. So that's going to be a really great time. So thank you for that, Isabelle, and reminding me.
No problem.
So back to you.
Thank you. Yes, it's an exciting time. I'm sure some of the people on the call might have seen some of the trains when they're driving. So just a reminder to please submit your questions or comments. I've seen a couple come in that we're going to ask at the end of the presentation. Once again, if you're on your phone or your tablet, if you just go to the bottom, you should see a Q&A. And if you're using your desktop or your laptop, if you just exit full screen mode and go to your top left, you should see a Q&A that you can click on to submit your question or comment. And back to you, Dallas.
Thanks, Isabelle, and thanks, Eric. That was a great summary of the important work that our partners Bombardier are doing with the trains and the testing. Really thankful for that. All right, I'm going to take you now through some of the project features along the alignment. We're going to kind of work our way from the downtown area and work our way south, and I'll talk about a number of locations until we get down to the Mill Woods area. So starting off, this is some photos of 102nd Avenue. The LRT alignment in this phase of construction starts or extends from 95th Street near Jasper Avenue all the way to 103rd Street. So what I find really interesting about the downtown corridor is that we aren't really doing much paving with asphalt. The surface of the road is, as you see in this photo, constructed, and the sidewalks, constructed out of paving stones. And it's done in such a way that there's architectural patterning and very distinctive and intentional coloring. You can't see in the photos here that some of that work is going to happen next year. And what I'm referring to is planting beds and amenity areas. So there'll be a lot of fairly fancy bench work, various vegetation along the alignment, a lot of it actually far more than what used to be there, and also some additional street lighting as well through downtown. So it's going to look really fantastic. Now, one thing I want to point out about the downtown area is we are working hard to open up certain areas of it to unimpeded pedestrian access, and that will occur in the coming weeks, but it will not open to vehicular travel through the winter. You won't see that happen until next year when we're in a position where we can start doing the commissioning of the trains in conjunction with the traffic signals. But you will have free and really good access, improved from even the good access you have right now for pedestrians through the winter. Moving a bit further now to the east end of downtown. This is right in front of the Elders Mansion, which is on the very south end of Chinatown in Edmonton. This is another photo, I think you saw it earlier, very similar in ways, of the portal for the tunnel. That has this red Chinese themed structure constructed above it. It's well underway. If you've been down there, you would see the photo on the left, and a lot of that red steel has been installed. We're actively working on that. It has a fairly significant feature on the far east end as well. That will be constructed in the coming months as well. And I also like to give a big shout out to our stakeholders in that area that have really been very accommodating as we came in and we needed to close off access along the street here at this location in order to build the paving stones. And it certainly wasn't easy for them, but we're very grateful for their cooperation in allowing us to do that. Moving a bit now further across the river, What you're looking at here is the pedestrian crossing over Connors Road. This is the Kahakanisgak Bridge. Now, this is replacing the previous pedestrian bridge that used to be there. And the reason it had to be replaced was, first of all, to raise it a little bit higher so that the trains could get underneath it. But we've also taken the opportunity to slightly adjust the alignment of that bridge to improve the safety, particularly for cyclists as they enter and exit the bridge on both ends. It used to be a fairly sharp 90-degree turn there. That's been softened out with this new design. Some of the other softening you can see in the photos here is just the lines of this bridge. Very unique styling, very intentional again with the railings as you see in the photo, something we're quite proud about. All right, moving now on to the top of Connors Hill. So this is a unique spot as well. Now, unique maybe isn't the right word. What we're really excited to announce here is we completed our last concrete track pour anywhere south of the river just a couple of days ago, just underneath these tarps is when that was occurring. So that is the completion of concrete, in total about 22 kilometers of track, 11 on each direction. That's now complete. We've been working on that for a few years now. So the crews celebrated that night, I can assure you. Within the next few weeks, we will be completing the rail installation also from the river all the way south. So we will have continuous steel rail from Millwoods all the way to the South Riverbank very shortly. Now, one other thing I want to point out here is this picture in the bottom right corner. That is the intersection of 95th Avenue with Connors Road. As you can see in this photo, it looks very close to being complete. It is very close to being complete. In fact, we will open that to traffic within the next week. So we're proud to announce that. Now, I'm sure a lot of you are from this area, in this neighborhood. You're probably wondering, when will Cloverdale Road open? I can tell you that is about 2 weeks behind this opening, so roughly in about 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks. Reminder that will be a one-way direction down the hill, heading north. And what has to happen in the next couple of weeks here is the last sidewalk connection. So if the weather cooperates, we will have the permanent sidewalks installed between Strathern Drive and Cloverdale. It's the last little area that needs the sidewalks. If the weather doesn't cooperate, we may have to put a temporary sidewalk in there until spring. But we will have that road open within a few weeks. All right, moving a little bit further now down 95th Avenue. A couple things I wanted to point out here, first of all, is that there are still a little bit of concrete pours ongoing down the middle of the trackway. That work is ongoing for the next couple of weeks, and you should see that happen during the daytime. Fairly minor concrete pours, but it's really just the last of the track concrete infills is what we call them. So that'll be occurring in the coming weeks. On the very far it would be the east end of 95th Ave at the intersection of 95th and 85th. We are just a matter of days away from one more traffic flip down there. We call them a traffic flip when we move traffic from one configuration to another. And what I can tell you is the lane configuration that will be there ultimately will be implemented when that traffic flip occurs. The lanes may shift slightly, but as far as the number of the lanes, the turning lanes, all of that information or that alignment will come into effect in a couple of weeks. Now, that really is a theme that I can tell you along the entire alignment. We have a great deal of traffic flips that we've been doing, as I'm sure you've seen in the last few years. We're nearing the end of that. There's a lot of infrastructure to do with traffic signals that's being installed lately, and those require little flips back and forth just to, literally at sometimes we have to move a lane over just to get that last signal light pole foundation drilled and the concrete poured, and maybe even just the last pedestrian push button installed. And that can just be one traffic flip to be able to do that. So all along the alignment, that work is occurring pretty much between now and the very end of November. I'll speak in more details of that in a few locations as we go through these slides. We're moving now down to Argyle Road and 83rd Street. So we've passed 85th Street, past the former traffic circle, which has now been converted into a full intersection. I'm sure if you've driven through there, you've noticed that as well. That is virtually complete. I'll just quickly note there is a little bit of median concrete to pour on the Connors Road side of that intersection. That will occur in the next few weeks as well. And the intent there as well by the end of November is to have all of the lanes fully opened to their ultimate configuration, which will mean if you're traveling northbound and you want to turn left to go down Connors Road, the 2 dedicated left turn bays will open up in a couple of weeks. All right, so this area down by Argyle, though, just a quick note. On the photo on the left, that is the northbound lanes. There is one more lift of asphalt that won't be paved until next year. That is the last of the top lift, we call it, paving along 83rd Street all the way from Argyle to 82nd Avenue. So that area of road work is virtually complete. Now, there is one thing to note. In the coming couple months, you will see us installing the piles for a retaining wall at 69A Avenue and the southbound side of 83rd Street, just to the north of Argyle Road. There's one little retaining wall that has to get built there as well, and that will occur in the coming few months. The lanes of traffic, though, will remain open on the southbound side. All right, moving a little bit further now, past Argyle Road. Now we've entered the elevated guideway portion of the alignment. So this is a 1.2 kilometer portion of track that is raised above Argyle Road and 75th Street, as well as over top of 2 railways and over top of Wagner Park. So you can see the station here being constructed. It's well underway. We're at the stage now where we are installing the glass around the buildings. You can see from the photo on the bottom left that the inside of that station is virtually complete. In fact, we just poured the topping concrete. It's called. It's a colored concrete on top of the platform just in the last week. And you can see from that photo as well that the beautiful wood roof is complete as well. I should note that roof is constructed out of individual pieces of lumber that have been individually stained and nailed into place, many, many thousands of them. Also of note, on the photo on the right, you can see the park and ride facility that I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation coming to life as well. That's the 1,300 stall parking lot that we talked about. In and around that, oh, there's a great picture of it right there. Look at that. So we are in the midst of putting in the curbs there and paving that right now. It'll be close to being completed this fall, but it will carry over into next spring as well. And you can see on the photo on the left, what those are is the bus bays for the transit center that surrounds the Davie Station. All right, moving now on to the OMF. I'm going to turn it back over to Eric. This is a little bit more of his baby, and he can speak to it much better than I can. So take it away, Eric.
Yeah, it was Mary talking to the mute button. I guess that's the new features now of having those webinars. Guys, it's really an amazing facility. We're able to store all the 26 trains within this facility. So you see the green doors. This is really the maintenance part of the facility, where we can do the regular, scheduled maintenance for the trains and any of the things that we have to resolve with the equipment. And then you see the longer part of the building. That's on the back end near white mud, which is white mud that you see going across there on the right hand picture. So that very long part of the building, this is the storage stabling area. So this is where we bring all the vehicles to bird at night. Keep them warm and cozy for everybody, while saving on energy. Getting them into shielded from the wind and everything. But no, they can sleep outside. They don't mind that. They're made and designed for the winter. But we want to make sure that when we get those systems, those vehicles out and about, we can do that swiftly and without delay. You'll notice, very interestingly, a very small building in that right-hand picture. So it's a small building. We can barely see it near the highway. That small building is for our AVIS system. So this is an automatic vehicle inspection system. So on a regular basis, we'll be passing the trains to that piece of equipment, and it's really amazing. It actually is used to detect any kind of anomalies and to assure that the vehicles are in tip-top shape. So really great element that's actually being deployed on that system. You can see on the lower hand of that picture near the asphalt, right in front of that building, where there's the ramp where the vehicles are delivered. So it's right there. So it's quite interesting. It will stay as a permanent feature. Probably will be removed when we're done delivery of all the vehicles. But if we need to receive more vehicles, then it'll be the spot to actually bring the vehicle in it. And you can see that the poles have been stood up in that area, and we're going to be able to operate. Now, if we go in the upper left corner, so that's the nerve center of the operation. So this is where our operation control center will be, we're going to have, presence, all the time, all days, and we'll be able to direct the traffic, interact with the drivers, monitor the performance of the equipment, and so on. So as you can see, we still have plastic. There's still some work being done in the area. We want to make sure to preserve the material and the equipment as we're finishing some of the little things. And that picture actually is a little bit dated. There's more that has been done into this. So again, nice view on white mud and where the vehicles are coming in. So quite an interesting thing for people to be working in, and also to interact with the public, and when there's questions, but more with respect to the service teams are going to be on and about the system. And on the lower left hand, you can't see the vehicles as they're being stored into the maintenance part of the facility. So that really indicates where we have pits. So pits is basically an access to go under the car to do some additional inspection, to do some adjustment work and preventive maintenance, to keep those vehicles in service and going about all the time for everybody's benefit. So really quite exciting to see how this is coming true and coming together. People are really hoping to get into that building, and also as we're going, we're mobilizing the people that will support that system and its operation. So really, really exciting, and it's a really nice building and very well done. So really, really appreciate it. Next picture. So you want to take it on, Dallas?
Sure, I'll take this one. Thanks, Eric.
Yep.
All right, so we're going to move a bit further south now. We're in the Millwoods area along 66th Street, south of White Mud Drive. So some of the things I wanted to talk about in this slide is, first of all, a little bit of rehashing on the landscaping. As I mentioned earlier on, there are about 22,000 shrubs, 85,000 shrubs being planted along the alignment, and about 10,000 trees. And the 22,000 actually was in reference to the amount of sod and square meters of grass that'll be planted. So what you can see in this photo, though, is a little bit of that coming to life. I'll point out that it's been designed in such a way to, first of all, have some patterning built into the species that are chosen. The species that are chosen are also selected based on the color of their leaves, so that in the wintertime we don't just have a brown and white, we get a little bit of color as well from that foliage. So we're really excited to see the landscaping. I think you probably have driven the alignment, a lot of you that are listening in today, and noticed there's quite a bit that's being installed. And I got to give it to the city. They did a great job of writing this into the plan, and I think it's going to look fantastic. Give this vegetation a few years to establish, and it's going to be quite beautiful. Some of the other things I wanted to point out in this photo really has to do with the status of traffic along 66th Street. So if you've been in that area, or if you're listening in and calling in and wanting to know an update of what's happening down there, you'll know that as of late, there's been typically one lane closed, sometime in the southbound direction, sometimes in the northbound. So normally 4 lanes, right now it's about 3. A lot of the cross streets also have been affected by some of our work in the recent months as well. So that's 38th Avenue, 34th Avenue, 36A Avenue even a little bit, and also 28th Avenue. What I can tell you is, similar to my comments earlier, a lot of that traffic signal infrastructure is being installed into its final stages these recent weeks. And I can let you know that by the end of November, the work that you see right now happening primarily on median curves will have wrapped up between those intersections. Now, I say between the intersections because there will still be some of the concrete median work required down the center of the roadways at the cross streets, as we call them, the 38th, 34th Avenues, but also down the middle of 66th Street. And that will occur and be completed in the spring of next year. However, we will still be able to open up the traffic to those intersections in its full lane configurations, meaning if there was 2 lanes prior, there will be 2 lanes when we're done as well towards the end of November. So we're excited to get traffic flowing along the Millwoods area back to its normal conditions very soon. Moving on now to the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about the LRT train stops and some of their features. So as Eric has already kind of mentioned, the systems installations are ongoing. A lot of that work isn't really seen, but it's very much integral to the stage we're at right now, which is moving right into a testing and commissioning stage. So to give you a little bit of flavor of the status, you can also be paying attention to what you see appearing on the stops along the alignment. On the photo on the left, you can see one of the big shiny cabinets that's being installed, where some of those cables that Eric and his team are pulling through the ducts underground and bringing up into that cabinet where they're terminated and the connections are made. So obviously you can't make that connection unless the cabinet is there. So you're going to start to see a lot of workers in and around those cabinets. If you've been down along 28th Avenue, you would also note that right now, to keep those areas warm, we have tarps in and around them, and we're keeping those areas heated just for the comfort of our workers and to allow that work to occur as expeditiously as possible. The other thing I want to point out to do with our stops is a little bit about their orientation. In some cases, the stop platform is on the outside of the track, and in some cases, it's between the tracks. And also in the middle of the roadway, on the outside of the roadway, there's a number of different configurations. So just something to point out. It depends on the neighborhood that you're in. But what I can tell you is the design has been done in such a way that the features incorporated into the sidewalk, as an example, are done in such a way to help the pedestrian have a visual cue of where to walk to get to a platform. So for instance, when you get near our stops, you're entering a pedestrian priority zone. In those zones, our design and our work incorporates colored concrete for those sidewalks to help give that visual representation. Also, you'll see a lot of those yellow tactile strips. Those are the little bumpy, knobby things that help the visually impaired feel where the edge of a platform is, or where they might be stepping beyond a sidewalk and into live traffic, that sort of thing. So those are additional cues for our pedestrians to help navigate getting to a stop. So I think you'll find it very easy to navigate as a pedestrian along this alignment. It's very integrated into the design. You'll also note along a lot of our stops, the shelters being constructed. You can see some of the steel work going up in the center photo. You'll start to see some of the glass being installed on that in the coming weeks and months as well. I should also note some of those stops, not some of them, those stops will be heated as well, or those, not stops, the shelters, which is unique to the Valley Line as well. All right. I want to talk a little bit about safety. So there's kind of a few different topics in the realm of safety. So I'll start out with pedestrians, because I was just talking about them. In a lot of our areas along the alignment, you will see in the bottom right corner here signs that designate the walkway for pedestrians. And this is really just a reminder to pedestrians to follow that signage. We want to keep you safe, and the best way to do that is to follow our designated walkways. Please don't step off of those areas and into our active work zones. The vast majority of the zones that we're working within are fenced, but in some cases they may not be, and we just want you to stay safe. So please follow either a fully constructed sidewalk that is obviously brand new and meant for travel, and if not, follow our designated signs. Now, when it comes to vehicle traffic, two things. I've mentioned a few times now that the traffic signals are being installed and they're coming online. You'll see these new signal signs along the alignment as well, and that's there just to remind you that something has changed at the intersection that you're approaching. Like any other intersection in the city, just simply follow the rules of the road and you will remain safe. So nothing really fancy to note, other than you're going to see some of our temporary signals that are supported by wires turn off, and the new signals that are currently bagged with black covers, those covers will be removed and the new signals will come online. Please just follow them like any other signal. Now, Eric has talked about testing. That'll happen over the coming months as well. As trains begin to enter new neighborhoods, and as that testing occurs, you will start to see these new train testing signs pop up. A lot of those will be mounted onto sandwich boards, and we'll place those near pedestrian walkways primarily, just to make sure that the public is aware that that area is active for train movements. It's very important that the public understand that we don't want you walking on the track. It may look like a sidewalk or an easy way to get from point A to point B, but we absolutely need you to stay on the designated walkways as they're signed, or on the obvious sidewalks that are either colored or the typical gray concrete sidewalks. Please do not walk along our trackway. All right, obviously, something I'd like to talk about is the COVID-19 response that Transit has taken since the beginning of the pandemic. It hasn't been easy. It's absolutely not been easy for anyone. Of course, you all know that. I have to, though, take a moment and just say a huge thank you to our workforce. these men and women have worked tirelessly to advance the project as best as they possibly could, while having to take measures that are not exactly normal for them. Obviously, wearing a mask is maybe more common to a construction worker than the average person, but having to wear a mask all the time in hot weather when you're by yourself, in a lot of cases, is not something they're familiar with. So I got to give them a lot of kudos for going the extra mile to be able to do that and keep our industry functioning, keeping this project moving, and ultimately for the benefit of the city. So thank you to them. Part of that work required them to also just take care of themselves. So we did a few things to help them out. We provided sanitizer, individual bottles, as like you see in the photo, the fellow on the top left holding that in his hand. We gave those little bottles of sanitizer just so they had them on their person at all times, and if they needed to clean their hands, they could use that. There's been a tremendous amount of additional cleaning that's been done on the project. We have a total of 13 crews that are dedicated just to cleaning washrooms, lunchrooms, office facilities, you name it. Any touch surface along the alignment has been cleaned rigorously through the course of the summer. Now, in addition, we brought on additional nursing staff just to help be eyes and ears and really a resource of information to our crews as well. So a big thank you to that group as well. And I guess the last note, really, I did talk about face coverings. We've had mandatory face coverings on the project for quite some time. And of course, that is really just following Alberta health guidelines, which is if you're within 2 meters, you need to be wearing a mask. Kudos again to our crews. The vast majority of them just choose to wear them all the time. All right, let's keep moving. Isabel, thank you.
Thanks, Dallas and Eric, for taking us through that and through the alignment and all the construction updates. We've had quite a number of questions that have come through, so if we aren't able to get through your questions, please know that we will send you an email from the comms team just to answer exactly what you asked here. So to dive in, the first question is for Dallas. Could you please speak a little bit to the lighting plan for the Dewatna Bridge?
Yes, absolutely. I can tell you that there are lights that will be installed. It's nothing too significant. It's nothing quite like the Walterdale or the high level, but there is SUP lighting along the hand railing. So that SUP that underslings, I don't know how to say it sometimes, that hangs underneath the bridge, that railing has lighting built into it as well. The tower also gets lit up. That's a bit of a feature. And from that, each of the light sheds onto those stays. It's the 7 cables that come off the bridge. They're called stays. So it will glow fairly similar, I would say, to the rendering the photo that we saw from Hugo earlier in the presentation. A lot of that lighting that's lighting up the cables right now is from our construction work, but there are lights that are mounted on the bridge that will also help give that feature in the future.
Thanks, Dallas. And for Eric, a question for you. A question did come in on what kind of, I guess, are they tractors or something in case there's a train that breaks down at any point, which we anticipate won't happen, but is there something that's going to push or pull the train back to the operations and maintenance facility? If you could speak to that.
Yeah, what a wonderful question. So thank you very much for that. So actually, it's quite interesting because there's a number of vehicles that are actually going to be running on the rail, but we use multi-purpose vehicles. So similar to maybe some of the vehicles that you've seen going on the tracks and also in other on the roads for other systems. So they're able to actually go in mixed traffic, so you're able to drive them like a normal truck, but also you can actually stand up on the rail and then operate on the rail as well at a much reduced speed. We've already received one vehicle that we're using for the inspection and the maintenance of the overhead catenary system. We do have also a vehicle that will be used for the recovery of the trains. Now, our preferred mode of recovery is going to actually be using another train. Makes things a lot easier. It can go faster in operation and than those vehicles would be. But if ever we've got a difficulty doing that for whatever reason, maybe because of lack of current and things like that, then we will have a vehicle that will they'll be able to actually handle that kind of activity. There's also a number of things that we need to do on the track, as you can imagine. So we need to clean the snow from those tracks, and also we need to be able to be prepared in case of emergencies and other events. So we will be equipped to be able to handle that with different equipment that we can bring on location using either the vehicle on normal streets or going on the tracks. We do have also a very small unit that we're calling the Spider for some of us, but it's a very small vehicle that is used within the maintenance facility, just so we can handle a train to actually move it from point A to point B without having a major equipment to move it around. So the short answer is yes, we do have a number of those vehicles. We already have received some, and there's more that are going to be coming on their way. So really, really interesting question, and it shows a keen understanding and keen interest about how we actually maintain systems. So very good question.
All right, thanks, Eric. We have time for one more question, which would be for Dallas. Dallas, can you please speak to a little bit the timelines for the construction of the bridge and why the bridge construction took a little bit longer than anticipated?
Yeah, I can tell you that, first of all, it's probably well known that we encountered an obstruction in the river that was a bit of a surprise when we were in the early phases of construction that caused a fairly significant delay, and that was directly related to the installation of our cofferdam that occurred within the river berm that I spoke of earlier. And we've been working hard to try and recover time from that ever since that event. As far as timeline, though, to let you know, kind of the reason I described the river berm, the shared use pathway, the rail, all those pieces of infrastructure that are being constructed right now on the bridge is to, again, to give you a bit of a visual representation. Now, if you're listening carefully, you would recognize that some of those things that I was talking about absolutely carry into the spring of next year. Listening to Eric and his testing and where things are at with that, we know that that's going to take some time as well into next year. So we are absolutely committed to getting the train into operation by the end of next year. We can't give a time. It's really too early to be able to do that, and it's not something that we want to do. What I want to make sure that the people understand that are listening in to this, and really any of your friends, just share the news, really is that our highest priority is delivering to Edmontonians exactly what they are deserving. The city has put together a robust contract that we're committed to completing. And at the same time, we're committed to making sure that as we operate the system for the next 30 years, and that's a key point, we want to make sure that that system is of the utmost quality before we put it into passenger service. And if that means taking a little bit longer to make sure it's 100% ready, we will take the time to do that. And we know the city is committed to doing that as well. That is most important. So again, this is a system that we're going to operate as TransEd for the next 30 years. We don't want problems with it. Eric and his team, when they're operating out of the Operation Control Center, as he described there, they don't want the hassle of something having a problem. So we're going to make sure it's perfect before we put any passengers on it.
Great. Thank you, Dallas. And with that, we're going to come to the end of this virtual update. Thank you so much, Dallas and Eric, for taking us through and sharing your knowledge on the project with us. And thank you to everyone who attended the virtual update. We really appreciate it. If we didn't get to your question, once again, we will be sending you an email with an answer to your question. And at the end of this presentation, once the presentation ends, there will be a survey that please fill in. We're asking you to fill in because your input does matter to us, and would like to hear from you on how we can do better with our communications and how you found the project and if there's anything else that we can add to it. So thank you once again, especially to the residents of Riverdale and Cloverdale. We appreciate your time. And thanks, Dallas and Eric, once again.
Thank you, and thanks, everybody.
Okay, have a great evening, everyone.
Great. Stay safe.
You too. Bye-bye.